This is how I do my binding, and I'm going to use the Lowland Kids tank as an example. So I already have my bodice sewn together, the top of each bodice and one of the straps, so I can show you what this is going to look like. The Lowland Kids pattern has the gap measurement, or the length that is in between this front and back bodice, on their pattern, so you will need to use that as well. So the first thing you do is sew your strap right sides together at the short end. Then you're going to fold it at your seam and put your first pin across from that on the other side. Lay that pin on top of your seam so you can find your other two sides. Now the gap for this size is 4.5 inches. So I am going to divide that 4.5 inches in half, and I am going to measure from my first pin here to the right and to the left. So from my pin, I measure that distance, and now I'm going to put a pin there, and now I'm going to repeat this on the other side. Once you have both of those pins in, go ahead and double check your measurements and make sure that everything is the correct distance. Both of your pins should now measure the full length of that gap. Your pins should only go through the first layer of fabric, so if you went through both, just take them out and readjust that. With your bodice inside out, we are going to attach our straps, lining up the seam on the strap with the inside seam of your bodice. Place the seam of your strap right sides together on the side seam of your bodice and pin those together. Next, we're going to move to our second pin, and that's what we're going to line up with the neckline of your bodice. So you're going to take your pin and you are going to lay your neckline right underneath that pin, and that is where you will pin those two together like this. Now we're going to go to the other side of our bodice and we're going to do the same thing. So your next pin, you are going to lay on top of your neckline, and I put this right underneath my pin and then pin those together. After you have those two pinned, that's it. You should still have your center pin that is across from your seam. So this is what it should look like. And now what we're going to do is we are going to serge this on. As you sew this on, you are going to need to stretch your strap. So keep that in mind as you are sewing, that you want to stretch to your next pin. As you approach where the neckline is on both of your bodices, you want to make sure that that seam that is on your neckline right here is pushed down and it's not flipped up. That way your bodice lays nice and flat. This is just a visual of what I mean by that. I already have this strap sewn on, so as you can see, that neckline seam is pushed down and not flipped up. That's what you want it to look like. So I start sewing where my middle center seam is, and you are going to serge all the way around your strap. Once you have your strap all sewn on, now what you're going to do with it inside out still is you're going to push up this seam here that you created when you sewed your strap on, and you're going to fold the top of your strap down just to meet that seam. So you're using that seam kind of like a guide. So once those match up, now what you're going to do is you are going to fold your fabric down and you're going to cover up that seam. And now you're just going to pin this down. So you're going to do this all the way around your entire strap. So you're going to fold your fabric down to where that seam is, and then you're just going to fold it down over top to hide it, and then just go ahead and put your pins in. After you have everything pinned, you may need to go back and make some adjustments if your strap looks too thick or too thin in some spots, and depending on if you're using a sewing machine or a cover stitch for this, you may need to either pin underneath or on top. So just go ahead and get this laid out and pinned all the way around, and if you have to, you can go back and make adjustments. When you come to the part of your strap that's not attached to the bodice, you're still just going to do the same thing. You're going to fold that bottom seam up, fold your top down, and then close that seam inside, and you're just going to pin all the way around. Once you have your strap all pinned and everything looks even, now you can either use your cover stitch machine, or I use my sewing machine, and I just top stitch this down around the entire strap. When I'm top stitching my strap down, I use a long straight stitch. I start at the side seam of my bodice and just stitch all the way around my strap, and you want to try to stay as close to the edge as possible because you are closing your strap now. So if you have to, you can lift it up a little bit to check underneath and make sure that you're going through all those layers of fabric and that you're closing your strap. You're going to do this for both of your straps, so making sure that they're even and they are the same width is really important. So you're all finished. This is what it should look like. I also use this method on the Samantha Marie Designs Breeze Romper, so come back for that.